This is not a ride-sharing video. I repeat, this is not a ride-sharing video. What up, folks? Once again, it is your boy, Tim, the Handsome Liberal. You see the title of the piece, An Armed Society Ain't Polite. Going to be asking that question because that is a very popular moniker, a very well-known phrase. An armed society is polite, leading folks to believe if the populace has access to firearms, a way of protecting themselves, you will not have a hell of a lot of folks getting out of line because there is a fear that everyone can defend themselves. So that is what we're starting out with. Is an armed society, appreciate that, Crystal, thank you, is an armed society indeed polite? Now, we often hear this in reference to Chicago, a city known for its tough gun laws, a city known for its high crime, high murder rate, a city known to be a liberal bastion or a bastion of liberals. Nevertheless, in Texas, in the state of Texas, the Lone Star State, we are starting to see an influx of mass casualty events. Obviously, there is no hesitation, no limitation on being able to own and possess firearms. So we're asking the question, is an armed society actually polite? Or where the hell is that coming from? Also, appreciate the hat and mustache, Gregory O'Shawn. Thank you very much. So I want to talk to the folks. Do you believe firearms, a heavy displacement of firearms in society, make that society more safe? Obviously, having access to a firearm gives you the ability to protect your family. We're not here to argue about that. But in an armed society, do you see our society as being polite, being safer because most legal citizens have access to firearms? As always, this program is and shall remain MAGA friendly. MAGA are my preferred guests. Nevertheless, liberals are always welcome as well. I always make the solemn promise I do not block, ban, or censor anyone for their commentary. So understand when you come in the box, you don't have to agree with the host. If you disagree with the host, nobody gives a damn about that. Can you plenty of time to state your point without any fear of being blocked, banned, or censored? An armed society is a polite society. Also, in regards to there is a busy news day. President Trump with this whole sexual assault slash defamation case that is coming to a conclusion in the city of New York. I believe they're at the closing argument stage, so we may also get a verdict on whether President Trump is civilly, not criminally, civilly liable of sexual assault and defamation. So we'll talk about that as well. As always, tap the screen, get your boy up to 5,000 likes, brings in more MAGA to the program. What do you think? An armed society makes us more polite. Going straight to the box. The 52 Cent. Always an honor to bring 52 on. Good afternoon and welcome back. 52. So what do you think? An armed society more polite?
I think the bad guys are going to be bad and the good guys are going to be good no matter what you do.
So you believe an armed society makes no difference at all?
I think it's going to be equal. So now it may change a few people's mind. You know, you see a weapon on somebody's hip, you're going to think twice before you go up and hit them upside the head. But you know, the bad guys are always going to be bad. The good guys are always going to be good. And that's just the way it's going to be.
So why do you think there's so many folks that bring up the strict gun laws in Chicago as a reason that they have so much crime? Chicago does have tough gun laws where they've kind of relaxed them. You can get a firearm in Chicago now. Not as easy as Texas, but for the most part, if you want to own a firearm legally in Chicago and you are a legal, a law-abiding citizen, you can get one. But do you see any type of logic in suggesting that Chicago has so much crime because they have tough gun laws?
No, I think they have so much crime because they're so impoverished. I think whenever you have poverty, you're going to have crime. the portion that has the gun trouble. The impoverished part of Chicago is where the gun trouble is, not the prosperous part.
Yeah, but how do you explain? And I'm a native from Chicago, lived there 30 years on the south side of Chicago. So I've lived in Chicago's worst neighborhoods. I'm going to disagree with you from this aspect. Even in the hood in Chicago, there's money. They may not be, rich, but there are plenty of Cadillacs and fancy cars. People taking vacations. I would submit to you places like Arkansas, rural Mississippi, rural Alabama, southern Georgia is where you have true poverty. If you drive even in the ghetto portions of Chicago, there's plenty of money. I don't think poverty is the issue.
Well, I think the drug culture and the gang culture, that's the issue.
I agree with that.
That's
yeah,
the
I
issue.
certainly agree with you. Yeah, I certainly would agree more with it being drug and gang culture, but even amongst drug dealers and gangbangers, there's not a hell of a lot of poverty there. They're fighting over territory and things like that, but none of them are sitting around starving to death.
No, I'm sure they're not.
Yeah.
In fact, I know a man who's in his he's probably 50 now, who in his youth was a drug dealer. And he told me at one point he had $100,000 stuck in the cushions of his mom's sofa.
Damn.
Yeah.
And now, how is he living now? Did the law take all of that money from him?
No, I don't think he ever got caught. But I think he stepped away from it.
Okay, God bless him. So we're starting to see now. I don't know if you paid attention to the news, but in the state of Texas, they had two mass casualty events this weekend. One where someone went to an outlet mall in a city nearby to Dallas, got out of the car in the damn parking lot and unloaded, taking out a bunch of people. And then we had someone go to a homeless shelter or something that was known in Brownsville, Texas, known to serve immigrants. Took his car and ran over, killing 8 of them. Now, this all happened in Texas. What the hell is going on in regards to the immigrants? Do you see any issue where we're starting to target immigrants?
I don't know. I don't live near, I'm in Ohio, so we don't have a lot of people crossing in from Michigan to bother us. But those people that are in those border towns, I have a funny feeling they're getting sick of it. It's getting to the point, I can't put myself in their shoes, but how would you like to be sitting out on your back porch and have people running through your yard or trying to steal your car or break into your home, because all these people are coming over.
But are they really doing that, or is that just anti-immigrant rhetoric? I mean, does most of the folks living in these border towns, are they reporting a large influx of burglaries?
Well, that I don't know. And I know if you escape from jail, the last thing you want to do is break into a house next door. You want to get the hell away from the jail.
I don't disagree with that, but I don't disagree that if you escape from jail, the last thing you want to do is break into a house next door. But I would also say if you flee and break into a country, the last thing you want to do is break into a house on the border. Wouldn't that also be very similar?
That's what I was saying. You would think that if they cross the border, they want to distance themselves as quick as they could. But
yeah. So why do you think there is such a hatred towards these people?
Well, I think that there is a perception that they are, getting welfare and coming over here and having kids, making them citizens, and that they're taking advantage, and people are getting sick of it.
So that's interesting. You were mentioned having kids and welfare, because now that we're moving towards banning abortion, certainly in the border states like Texas, they're not going to be able to have it. What happens if an immigrant comes in this country illegally and they are pregnant and they give birth while on our soil?
Then that kid is an American citizen.
Right, right. So in the
Yeah.
mom,
She can get deported. We can separate them. Everybody blames Trump for separating them. Let's get them apart.
and you
I
think that's
don't
a
know.
good
Tim,
idea?
guys like you and me, we ain't out messing with people. We're not out causing trouble with people. And we're always going to be that way. These people that think they got to steal and they got their drug habits and their alcoholism, they're always going to be that way. You ain't going to change us. You ain't going to change them. You know,
That's so. So at the end of the day, if nobody's going to change, do we just accept the status quo? Even when it comes to these mass casualty events, do we just accept that living in America comes with large amounts of folks being shot? I mean, is that just something we consider part of American culture?
well, there's going to be people in your life that aren't going to like this statement, but I'm going to say it anyways because I do. The further we get away from God,
Yes,
the worse we're going to be. I'm sorry. When you quit living by the golden
we could
rule,
talk.
it's
Yeah. Well,
you flip through
I grew up.
TikTok.
I got a.
What's that? You broke up on me.
No, I heard you said you flipped through TikTok and TikTok.
Yeah, you flip through TikTok and it's racism, transgender, homosexuality. Uh, Everything is controversial. You don't flip through and see positive things. It's all negative, 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 and it's stupid.
Yeah,
And we're getting worse.
you're talking about. Yeah, but you're talking about the Bible and referencing positivity. If you read the Bible, isn't all of that negative? People turning into piles of salt and flames and going to hell. The Bible is extremely negative.
Yeah, but we all like salt, so uh, you know it's it's
I
just
gotta
the way
go.
it is. I'm a karaoke
All right,
DJ.
52. We could.
I'm a karaoke DJ, and 2 weeks ago Saturday, five guys got up and sang, "Man, I feel like a woman." And I made the statement,
Mm.
here's the new theme song for Bud Light. Well, somebody bitched to the owner. He's being political. She said, what did you say? And I said, five guys sang, man, I feel like a woman. I said, it's the new theme song for Bud Light. She couldn't quit laughing. She says, you probably shouldn't say that again. But it's, what the hell,
Oh,
people?
my God. Never disappoint. Good conversation. I got to move on, 52.
All right, have a good one.
All right. YouTube, I may be breaking up. I don't know what the hell's going on so damn soon. By the way, folks, tap the screen. Get your boy up 15,500 plus of you folks in here. Couple things going on. I wanted to bring I'm having problems with this. I don't know what the hell. 52, go ahead and drop out because it's freezing on my side. Save it for your non-working hours. What the hell does that mean? You're taking someone. Let's say I want to read the comment, but what's wrong with drinking Bud Light? I don't see nothing wrong with it. I'm not a beer drinker, but I'm going to give my own personal analysis. There's a lot of hatred towards the trans community. That's the only reason. It doesn't change the contents of the can. There's hatred towards that community. I would submit to you that if you put a trans person in a movie, you put a trans person on a team, you put a trans person in terms of selling a Buick or a car, wherever they go, there's going to be outcry because there's hatred toward that community. Do not believe the hype that, well, I don't mind a person living as they want to live, don't just shove it down my throat. Then allow them to live and have a career like anybody else. If you're hating on them wherever they go, then you're not allowing them to live. And folks do not want to admit that because at the end of the day, admitting hatred is not good. Looking in the comments. Appreciate that, JJ and Jess. Thank you. No, people are tired of that shit, says Super Cat Dude. How are you tired of it? I'm a regular tax-paying American navigating through society. How does the transgender community interfere with your life? If you're an average person going to work every day, coming home, how do you end up becoming tired of transgender? What are they doing to intercept your life to the point of exhaustion? I'd love to know that. That's why I don't vote for Trump. He stands for hate. Wow, says Martin W. All right, let me go back to the box. Hopefully it works. I'm having a bit of an issue with the box. Tap the screen. Get your boy up to 15,000. I appreciate the love. Appreciate it. Helps out the algorithms. But this is a MAGA friendly program. MAGA are my preferred guest, but liberals are welcome as well. We'll keep it going with the Truth Doctor. Good afternoon. Welcome back to Only Still are protesting Bud Light. Okay, so you would be daddy. Okay, all right. Okay. Yeah. Well, the last caller referenced the joke he made in regards to Bud Light and said, a bunch of men drinking Bud Light were singing "I Feel Like a Woman." So that's why I went to trans, and my last caller took it that way.
Yeah, darn it. Can you guys hear me now? I don't understand why this
I
happens
can
with my. No, the
I
guests.
can hear you loud and clear. Yeah, I don't know what the hell's
No,
going. I can hear you
can you
loud
guys
and
hear me now?
clear. I did.
Okay, here we go.
Yeah,
So
loud and clear.
what I asked him was, is why do we always go immediately to trans, with an issue? And we started with the 2A issue, and then we went right there. We went right there.
Okay, and
The
I
problem that we have is we
okay.
have a society of people that can't influx certain things together, and have certain arguments without going to the other one. Like you cannot. There's no such thing as logic that is illogical. All right,
Okay.
you can't bring logic to a table that is illogical. Oh well, let's go ahead and talk about 2A, and then let's talk about trans in the same fucking argument. Yeah, okay, that makes total sense. Makes total sense. I would bank that on everything. No, you can't do that. And we
Yeah.
do this because we talk this way, and we got to stop doing that.
Well, like I always say, I believe in allowing my callers to speak. And when he took the argument towards trans, I did entertain his comment. But we'll go back to where the comment actually belongs, and that is in regards to 2A. Do you buy into the notion that an armed society is a polite society?
I believe in very specific weapons of war that you don't get if you are a citizen.
Elaborate. Elaborate.
Um, there is, we went through a war machine that created weapons of war that this society probably should never have seen. All right. And they killed an entire generation of people doing it. So, like, I don't think that you get those weapons of war, tanks, planes, fucking, these things, like things
Yeah,
that
but you got,
things that
but
things
let's,
that are
I
not
mean,
a household item. All right.
yeah, but
Now,
let's just be honest. 99.9% of Americans do not have the weapons you just
I
mentioned.
understand that. That's where I was getting
Okay.
to. Is that we don't have that. We don't have that problem. But if you're a 2A toting, oh, everyone gets all the guns, motherfucker, and you want it to be that way, then rich people will own the world because they will do that. They will make sure that people here in the United States or elsewhere are able to buy them because guess who sells the most shit? That would be us.
Yeah. So you believe that
So
the only
we have to keep this in perspective.
okay. So your argument is that the only reason America is the only reason we have so many guns floating around in the country is for people to make money, the rich to make money off selling them.
Hell yeah. And you know who the rich are? That'd be your politicians. The federal
Yeah.
government sells more guns in a year than any private salesman could do in their lifetime.
Well, but what
In their
about President
lifetime.
Biden? But what about Biden? He's been a politician his entire damn adult life, and he is anti-gun for the most part. He talked about only having the shotgun, fire 2 shots in the air. He's constantly promoting what do you call it, an assault rifles ban. So he's a politician, and he doesn't fit the argument you're making.
I don't think he does, but I also don't think he knows what planet he lives on. So I think we need to find, people that we can put into office that, do the right thing. And by the way, you know me, I didn't vote for fucking Trump either. So I don't like either of the gentlemen. I think that we need to find a new way. I'm running for office myself. I think that we have to start as citizens. We had 27% local voter turnout, local election voter turnout in the last
27%.
27% on national average.
Who
27.
the hell was running? Who the hell was running for office? Satan? Why so few people?
Because we don't, as people, want to acknowledge that local elections are the ones that actually matter, and that your presidential election is the one that's the least important. It's the least
So let
important
me ask
election.
you this. If you were put in office, what type of gun legislation would you support or promote?
I would promote one thing. All right. I would put a picture on your social security card. I would make your social security card a chip card, and I would make you register every single gun on that card. I would make you register all kinds of federal information on there. All right. What we have right now, and by the way, I'd use it as a voter ID card too. You know what? If we want to have true bipartisanship, talk, then let's do that. Let's do that. All right.
But
You
isn't
want
that
you want
isn't
you
that
want
an
that? Then we'll do that.
expansion? Yeah, but isn't that an expansion of big government? Now you got everybody registered. You got to be carrying this card around with a chip in it, with their picture on it. Isn't that a huge expansion of big government?
No, I don't think it is. I don't think it is. I think that we've already done it. We have the gold star standard on our license right now. It's a national ID already, and we've already kind of started that process. So stealing social security numbers, which I see in the comments, is something that could be easily taken care of if we do what I'm talking about. But again, like what I would do is I would make sure that you are registered to have a number on that. Now, here's the thing. Here's the thing. Do we all understand how we sell guns in this world and who sells them? Because most people don't. Most people don't understand that your federal government sells more guns in your lifetime than you could ever imagine. And what we
Yeah.
have to do is we have to stop that contract selling of guns. And we have to stop that, and then we
So
can
who
start
would sell it? Wait a
privatizing it.
minute. If you get the federal government, so when I asked you about gun laws you would support, you talked about the ID. Are there guns you would ban citizens from owning?
Absolutely. 100%.
Like
You
what?
can't own a rocket launcher. You can't own a tank. You can't own a fucking F-18. You can't own a. I would absolutely do that, and it would be a registry process.
Here,
Hundred
here's
percent.
what. Here's, let me go by way of the Ubalde shooter. I just turned 18. I don't have a juvenile record, so I'm free and clear in terms of criminality. At my 18th birthday, I'm going to use some money I saved up. I want to purchase 2 ARs and several magazines. I don't have a criminal record at all. Would you allow me to have that?
No,
Why not?
because I think you need to go through a process of not only understanding how to use such weapon, but and this is what I would do. And I know that I'm way out there when I say this. I think in order for you to have a driver's license, that you should have to go through a firearm safety course. I think that if you want the privilege of being able to drive on our roads, then you have the privilege of understanding how firearms work, how they operate, and why we have such a problem. If you want education, then teach it. But when are
And
we
you
going to do
don't
it?
see and you don't see any of this as an expansion of big government. Now, to get a
I
license to drive, I got to know about guns.
Absolutely. And do I think it's an expansion of big government? Sure, in that sense, I do believe that it's an expansion of big government. Is it the way
All
that
right,
I
there
would
we go. All
expand
right.
big government? Yes. Do I love big government? No. But it is a way that I would
What
expand.
are you? Okay, I gotta move it on. But what party? I mean, are you affiliating with any party? You're running as an independent. What are you running as with that type of
I am
proposal or
running
that
as
type
a.
of?
I hate the fact that everyone asks me this. I'm running as a Republican, guys. I am a constitutionalist conservative, and I had to pick a fucking pronoun, right? I had to pick one, all right? And so I picked one, but I'd run a Sparkle Party, and you know that my first name was Sparkle Pony. And I would run a Sparkle Party. I don't give a damn what my party is. I run as this is what I
Yeah.
think is right, and this is how I think it should be done.
All right. I mean, I've never heard a Republican talking the way you have, but I gotta move it on. Good luck in your campaign. Come on back
Thank
anytime.
you, sir. I love you, Anson.
Absolutely.
Later, bro.
Appreciate it. Look it in the comment. He ain't no Republican, says KOS. Well, neither is Trump. Bernie Sanders is not a Democrat. Sometimes you have to run as a particular party because that is the best choice you can make or a lesser of two evils. I say this all the time. Bernie Sanders is not a Democrat. Trump is not a Republican, but they needed to run as those party affiliates to get access to the coffers from the DNC and the RNC. Bernie Sanders did not have the money to do it on his own. Trump did not have the money to do it on his own either. So they ran as a lesser of two evils. And the proof in the pudding is both Bernie Sanders and President Trump face a hell of a lot of backlash from the traditional members in their party. The Democrats are not big fans of Bernie Sanders because he's not a true Democrat. You're not one of us. And you see what's happening with Trump in the Republican Party, where Trump is literally transforming the party to the point where all of the traditional Republicans are now being called rhinos, as if they lost their entire affiliation. So when this gentleman with those political viewpoints, as he stated, talking about my last caller, suggested he is running as a Republican. You heard what he said. I'm a Sparkle Party or whatever. He's running as a Republican because that's the only option in his area. All right, look it in the comments. Oligarchs by elections. Wow. No idea a spark improvement in the human condition. I don't quite get that. Republicans are better known as the terrorist party now. Yikes, user. Yikes. I'm a Dem. We love Bernie, says user. Listen, the Democrats that favor Bernie Sanders are going to be predominantly under the age of 40. There's a lot of them. As you point out, you're one. There's a lot of Democrats that like Bernie, but the vast majority of them are under the age of 40. And unfortunately, the vast majority of Democratic voters that can be relied upon to show up to the polls on election day are over 40. So you got a hell of a lot of Bernie Sanders supporters that are actually not going to officially support him. All right, going back to the comment section. Oh, Republicans are communists. They want to control our homes and our kids and what we do with our kids. Is Republicans really doing all of that? And I see your comment, user. You said you're over 40, but you get what I'm saying. Tap the screen. Get your boy up to 25,600 plus of you in here. Program is and always shall remain MAGA friendly. I don't block, ban, or censor anyone for their commentary. Fact that you may disagree with the host never means a damn thing. You know what I state all the time. Going back to the box, we'll keep it moving. What does that say? My life as a trucker. Good afternoon. To the program. Got a host of issues going on, but in regards to the Second Amendment, an armed society is a polite society. Do you buy into that? My life as a trucker.
Hold on one second. Let me turn my microphone on here. I got my headset
Don't
on
turn,
here.
if you got Bluetooth, if you have Bluetooth, do not do that because it's going to make you echo.
I had to turn my Bluetooth on. I've heard the last guy that was in the bots. I talk to him pretty often. I'm
Okay.
kind of on the opposite side of that. I do vote Republican, but not because I really want to. Uh, I kind of feel like Republicans have went in the opposite direction of what we really stand for. Uh,
What do you mean? Well, wait a
well,
minute. You got potentially Trump versus DeSantis. Nikki Haley and Mike Pence is in the mix as well. If it comes down to those four, Trump, DeSantis, Pence, or Nikki Haley, where would you go being a Republican?
I would probably vote for Pence. And
Wow.
you know why? You know why? Because I'm conservative. All right. So conservative, we hold to our values, our Christian values and stuff like that, right? But at the same time, Pence actually followed the system of law. All right. Pence went against everybody. He went against Trump. He went against his own party to follow the system of law. He actually done the right thing. All right. I voted for
Well,
Trump.
in regard to,
Oh,
go ahead.
I voted for Trump. All right, I voted for Trump because I was thinking like a Tea Partier. You know, back when Obama was president, you had this
Yeah.
Tea Party movement came on. It was about the health care
Yeah, you're talking
benefits and
about
stuff.
with Joe the plumber and all of that.
Right, right. So I was on the fence, you know, and I was thinking, well, maybe Donald Trump could be something other than what these Republicans have been for all these years, you know, and maybe broaden the horizon of the conservative value system, you know, and actually get back to what America actually is supposed to be. And the problem is, though, he ended up. A lot of people don't know this, but Donald Trump was never against abortion. All right, he actually went to a meeting at Billy Graham's house. All right, Billy Graham is, you know, he runs a very powerful Christian lobby, the Graham
Right, right.
Ministry.
700 Club or something like that.
Yeah, and they provide a lot of wealth and money to the system, you know, to the Republican Party. And when he done that, he came out immediately. It was against abortion, and I knew then that he had pretty much
But
sold.
dude, so he's saving kids. So he's protecting the life of the unborn for the money.
No, no, it's not that. It's not. I'm for life. All right, I'm pro-life. All right, but I'm pro-choice, and it's hard to explain to people because when you're an American, when you live in a society that's supposed to be free, and we've got this Constitution and we've got this Bill of Rights, it's hard to be both and explain that to people. You know, people don't understand that. They can't grasp it. How can you be a Christian but also be against life? You know, and I'm like, well, as an American citizen, our forefathers laid out specific principles for us to live by, right? We could be Christians, we could be Muslims, we could be anything we want to be. We could be non-religious. But over the years, we have incorporated our religious beliefs into the system. You see what I'm saying? We
I
voted for
don't.
these ideological principles.
Yeah, I don't see how in my opinion, we've moved away from mixing religion with politics. I think if you go back to the early days, we were doing that far more than we do now. In fact, you heard one of my callers state that we need to go back towards religion to make America a better country.
I'll give you some proof. If you pull out a $20 bill and you look on the back of it, what does it say?
And you mean in God we trust?
In God we trust. All right, underneath it, you have that weird ass pyramid triangle with the eye, that looks crazy as hell. It's like an Illuminati thing, right?
Right,
And
right.
then right on top of it, you have in God we trust. And we all know money is the root of all evil, right? Now,
That is true.
now if you were to put all those things together, what do you have? Chaos. You understand? You have a system. You have a system. Look what we're in now. Look what the money is doing to our system. What are we doing? We're
But let me
fighting
ask you
over money.
this. But let me ask you this. Every government, every country has some form of currency. Yet America is one of the only countries where people are shooting the hell out of each other. You don't see anything unique about what's happening here?
Well, other countries have gun laws. There's other countries that have different gun laws than us. But I mean, in our country, our gun laws, our rights have been infringed against from the system. We have constantly allowed our own ideologies to to what we think enhance the system, but it's corrupted the system. If we were to live by the Constitution only, right? Say we didn't have lobbyists, we didn't have these people that were raising money for all these specific religious organizations or non-religious organizations or anti-gun lobbyists, sexuality lobbyists like the LGBTQ. Imagine if we had a government that we ran specifically on the principles of our Constitution and Bill of Rights, how much freer we would be.
Yeah, but I don't know if that would, in regards to guns, what we're discussing, we are pretty damn free compared to the rest of the world. Let me ask you this question. In regards to the comment section, Shah Boogie asked the question you hear all the time. Why do you need an AR-15? How do you respond to someone asking that?
It's not that I need it; I would want it. I don't specifically want an AR-15, but if I if if I have a Second Amendment right, then I have a right to own a gun, not necessarily an AR-15, but I have the right to own a gun.
But
If it's
what about
available.
the notion? What about the notion that there are so many people dying by way of that firearm? Are you willing to, since you said you don't need it, are you willing to kind of forego the right to own that if you thought it could save lives? Would you be willing to do that?
The right. Well, see there. That's where you got your the words. All right. So your right to own it. All right. So we all have the
Yeah.
right to own it. All right. So
Right.
that's like if I go in Walmart, right, and they say don't buy this toy because your kids could choke on this toy, and they have a higher rate of people choking on that toy. Am I going to buy it? If my kid really wants that toy, am I going to buy it for him? No, I'm not going to buy it. You know what I mean? Because he might choke on it.
Yeah, but I don't know if that answers. I don't quite understand if that answers the question. You have
Uh,
a right. We all have a right as long as we are law-abiding citizens to own this particular weapon. However, as you pointed out, you don't really want it or have a need for it. You just enjoy the fact you have a right to get it. Would you be willing to sacrifice that right to get that particular weapon if you thought it could save lives?
I'm not going to sacrifice any of my rights.
Okay.
And what I mean, all
So,
right, I'm gonna be honest with you. If I wanted to save lives, all right, I would rather the system completely get rid of ideology altogether. I would rather us be a non-religious country than get rid of my rights. And what I mean by that is, if you have to look at it like this, because what if religious like evangelicals no longer had power? What if it then turned to, like, say, uh, like atheism? What if atheism became the predominantly religion in the United States? You understand? And so what happens then? Are they going to create a laws system based on their beliefs? You understand? So
well,
what I'm
we
saying,
Well, we are kind of headed in that direction, are we? The amount of atheists are growing at a fast rate, and the amount of Christians are declining. We are headed in that direction.
it's going to take a lot of time for that to work itself out. I honestly, what I believe that we have in this country is a problem with these ideological principles that people are not willing to let go. All right, and it affects mental health. It affects our laws. It affects our rights. If we get back to what they call the grassroots movement, is moving into living our lives by the Constitution, right? Living by the Bill of Rights, getting rid of we it's like I was on a live the other night. We were talking about abortion, right? And they were talking about, well, these Republicans, they're wanting to completely take us out and all this stuff. They're wanting to control our bodies. And I was like, yeah, it's not just the Republicans, all right? Because abortion didn't just start with Republicans. It started with both parties. You had moderate Democrats and you had Republicans that created this bipartisan against abortion. And here lately, it's just Republicans, right, that are
Yeah.
starting because Roe versus Wade was given to the individual states, and these democracies, which a democracy in itself is a mob, right? A larger
Wait
group
a
of
minute.
people.
I just want to say before I got to move it on, but before I do, I will tell you this in regards to the claim that Roe versus Wade was removed and abortion decisions were given back to the states. The guy you said you would vote for, Mike Pence, has already came out and said a federal abortion ban is the aim. So has Mitch McConnell. So has Lindsey Graham. So just like when folks suggest I don't want to give up my rights in regards to gun laws because it's a stepping stone towards taking away all guns, even though abortion is not a right, it's not in the Constitution, it's pretty clear the writing is on the wall that your party wants a federal abortion ban. You got the top members of the party coming out and saying it.
Yeah, that's the problem. Yeah, I can't. You can't say, oh man, they're 100. I'm 100% on board with these people because you don't agree with all their stuff. But then, like you said, yeah, these candidates run based on what their party and constituents want them to run on, and they do
Yeah.
it so they can run as president. But then I have to vote like that too, right? I don't agree with everything Republicans stand for. I have to pick the better of the three or the better of the two. You understand? Uh, like Donald Trump. I wouldn't want to vote for Donald Trump, all right, because Donald Trump, he's done a lot of shady things. I mean, he's a Republican. I believe that he has done some good, but the bad stuff in his life and before he became president
So you
outweighs the
be
good
now.
stuff.
Wait a minute. Trump promised to drain the swamp, and here you are saying he done a lot of shady. Are you suggesting that he is corrupt and part of the swamp himself?
I think he is. I, and
Mm.
and I
All
and I
right.
and what honestly, what I believe by that is I think that just like every politician, he tried to cover up his past before he ran for office, and now this stuff is coming out, and it's just like all the other like look at Joe Biden, stuff's coming out about Joe Biden. They all do it, and
But
but we
you're
thought, but
making the more you right, but the more you speak on Trump, you're making him sound more like a typical politician when that was his claim to fame is that he was not. I'll give you the last
exactly
word.
that's why I voted. That's why I voted for Trump. Right, I voted for Trump because I thought he wasn't like a regular politician. But when the truth always has its light. It's always going to come to the light. All right, it's going to do that with anybody, with all the politicians. And to be honest with you, like you, I'm looking at all these people, and I'm trying to pick the one that's closer to what I believe in. And I believe that Mike Pence, in a time when this country could have sided with Trump wholeheartedly or against Trump wholeheartedly, he went in the middle, and he sided with the system, and he done the right thing.
All right, fair enough, trucker. Got to move it on. Come on back through anytime.
All right, have a good.
All right, looking in the comments real quick. At the expense of the vulnerable. Wow. Money makes them dishonest. But many folks would point out that Trump did not take a salary, that Trump was going to be a president for the people. Remember, he was going to put America first, make America great again. It says it right on the hat. There was, as you see, my last caller, a Trump supporter that apparently does not sound very happy with the former president. Look at it in the comments. Republicans are liars and racists and the devil. Don, that's pretty harsh. Liars and racists and the devil. Come on now. You believe that every single individual identifying as a Republican fits that harsh criticism? That's a bit much. Snuggles. Kiss my grits in the box. All right, I get it. Let's keep it moving to the one and only Kiss My Grits. We're
Hello,
talking about
hello. What is
good
all
afternoon.
what is all this ridiculous talk? Why do we have to get rid of our guns because other people have mental illnesses? I mean, we have to go to different bathrooms because other people have mental illnesses. What is all this stuff? What is all this
Well,
sensitivity for?
to respond to your question, why do we have to get rid of our guns because people have mental illness? It's because we're not doing a damn thing about mental illness. So until you do something about mental illness, we got to stop you from becoming armed. Does that
Hey,
make
hey,
sense?
hey. When you're drinking beer and you drive drunk, you're responsible for driving drunk. Should we take away beer because people decide they want to have too much beer and drink alcohol? That's a weapon.
Well, that's a good question. Think about it. You got cops that are often stationed outside of bars and clubs, so they do random checks. They got all types of campaigns that deal with driving, driving drunk. We've done a lot to prevent or to address
Yeah,
exactly what you're talking about.
but I
We
grew up in
don't
the
do
non.
this at
I grew.
all.
You and me grew up in the non-sensitive era. Okay, there's too much sensitivity here. I'm not going to bend over because somebody wants me. I'm a law-abiding citizen to get rid of my guns. Go figure out something else, government. If these people have mental issues, they got to figure it out themselves, okay? Because I don't want to be punished for stuff that they're doing wrong, okay? I need those guns to protect myself from the mental illness people. What are we going to
Yeah, but
protect ourselves with?
but why is that so unusual? We often are punished because other folks are doing something wrong. There's a reason why you have a speed
Right,
limit.
but what
As
are
you
we going to
mentioned,
protect ourselves from? If I see somebody shooting somebody in a mall, I'm going to take my gun out and shoot them. I don't care what happens.
is it possible for you to be able to defend yourself without purchasing an AR-15?
Absolutely.
Okay, so do you need that weapon?
I need them. In this society today, you know it. I need them.
You just stated you can defend yourself
It
without
doesn't
that weapon.
matter. I don't have to get rid of, I'm a law abiding citizen. I don't have to change for nobody.
So it's not about self-defense. It's just about the fact that I'm a law-abiding citizen and I want my rights.
Absolutely. Isn't that America?
Well, yeah, so is mass casualty events too, though. So do we just live with this so you can have your rights?
Absolutely. They are the ones that caused the issue. They're the ones that decided, hey, I'm going to have breakfast and I'm going to go shoot a few people. That's not my problem. Okay? That's not
It
my
ain't your
problem.
problem. It's not your problem until your ass is getting shot. Listen,
Oh, my
even
ass
with
won't
a
get shot.
firearm.
Trust me on that. My ass won't
No,
get shot.
I don't. No, I do not trust you on that because I'll tell you this: if I
Right.
put an if I put an AR-15 in your hands, and I
Right.
had someone else that had the exact same weapon as you, the
Right.
exact same skill set as you, and they were
Right.
walking, going to the mall, and I told you stop the car, get out, use that, and take them out, you would
Right.
probably succeed 100% of the time. Just because you're armed doesn't mean you're going to be ready for this stuff.
Now, handsome, you're sitting in a car right now. You get jacked right now. What are you going to do? You're going to try to talk your way out of it?
If someone were to walk up right now with a
Absolutely.
firearm, I'm gonna get
Yeah.
out of the damn car.
Okay. So
What do you
you
think
don't
it's
have a
gonna
piece
do?
on you.
No, I'm working. I can't carry one right now. I
Oh
get
my
your
gosh.
point. I get your point. But what I'm trying to say is
Absolutely.
this: carrying a piece does not guarantee you're going to be ready for a surprise mass
Right.
casualty event.
Well, I'm just saying we need to protect ourselves. I'm tired of bending over for mental illness. I want to have my guns. I don't want to change bathrooms. We don't have to change bathrooms for people that decide they want to be a woman, men who want to be women. I don't want to change for nobody. That's their things. It's horrible. Why should we change for that?
Because I would still be a slave if you didn't.
I think we're being slaves because the government's making us get rid of us, law-abiding citizens, getting rid of our bathrooms, getting rid of our guns is being a slave to the government.
You're not being a slave to the government. You're actually
Why?
choosing life. I thought you guys cared about life so much. Dude, the fact that people are dying in these events week after week mean nothing to you?
Well, hey, it happens. People drunk drive. How many drunk drivers kill people, unalive people? How many drunk drivers unalive people? How many?
I don't
Just
know,
as
but
many,
your response is
more than the amount of somebody going out and doing a mass shooting. There's more drunk drivers unaliving people. So should we get rid of all alcohol in America?
no, but I don't think you should leave it totally
So it's okay then for people to
unregulated.
drink. It's okay. So what you're saying, it's okay for people to drink and drive and unalive thousands of people each year, right? Is that okay
No,
then? I guess
no.
because
Let me respond it. Let me respond to it by saying this. Since you're making the alcohol comparison, when you look
absolutely.
at what life was like in America from right after Prohibition, so we all got the right to drink. Look at
Right.
all of the laws they have
Hmm.
passed to address or regulate or limit your alcohol intake. You got to be 21. You can't
Right.
do this while drinking. You can't do that. Look at all the laws they passed in regards to guns since
Right.
that time. Virtually
Right.
nothing. They would have done the equivalent of made it easier to drink. Whereas
Right.
they've passed laws dealing with DUIs and things you're talking about. When it comes
Right.
to firearms, the common response is to do nothing.
Right. Well, I don't know. I just think it's very hypocritical on this aspect.
Well,
I'm just
hypocritical how?
because we need to get rid of all beer. We need to get rid of all alcohol. I think that would be a great
I
way to
don't
solve things.
Let me give you some examples. For instance,
Right.
if a bartender continues serving you past the point of being drunk, they can be held accountable. As I
Right.
said, they got to check IDs. You actually go through more checks to buy alcohol, damn near,
Right.
than you do a gun in some
Well,
cases. So
hold on. Here's an overview. Every day, about 32 people in the United States die in drunk driving crashes. That's one person in every 45 minutes.
how many get shot?
11,654 people die in alcohol impaired driving traffic deaths per year.
And how many get shot?
So those people don't care. So you don't care about that, people.
No.
You don't care about that.
The point I'm trying to make is if we didn't pass any laws dealing with alcohol, the number
Right.
you just quoted would be substantially higher.
Well, how many people get shot? Well, they don't care about the Democratic cities, right? Chicago, they don't care about them, right? They get shot every weekend. But who cares about that, right? Let's leave those killings out of the
Where
way.
are
Let's
you
leave those
going with
unalivers out every day. Because the Democratic people, they don't care about the black on black shootings. So let's just limit it to just the white shooter killing eight people, I mean, because it's very limited. So nobody cares about the inner city. I'm from Chicago.
You hesitated to refer to taking 8 lives as only a few lives. You literally were about to say that.
They say, oh, 8 people got killed. Well, in Chicago, 30 people get shot every weekend. It's not on the news. Nobody cares about the 30 people. Nobody cares about 30 people getting shot every weekend in the summer. 30 to 60 people every weekend. It's not a big deal, right?
So you're pointing to black on black crime in Chicago and suggesting
absolutely
no one
nobody talks about it. We don't see BLM. We don't see any protests on that. We only see when a soldier does a chokehold on a guy. He's trying to defend himself. A choke, I mean, it's crazy news.
So you're pointing out no one cares about black on black crime, but when we talk
Nobody
about
does.
the mass. Well, okay, all right, I get your point. You're saying that no one cares about this. So when we talk about these mass casualty events, like what happened in Texas, I have to ask:
right.
Does anyone care about that?
Well, it doesn't seem like nobody. It seems like people care more about that than the most of the shootings that happen in Democratic cities. People are calling me racist, but I care about the black on black shootings because I see it every weekend. I'm not a racist.
Example. If you're saying it seems like people care about the mass casualty events in Texas, give me some examples of how Republicans come across as if they care about mass casualty events. You're criticizing black on black with the Democrats.
Absolutely.
Give me some examples that would lead you to believe Republicans care about mass casualty events.
Well, I can't. I don't have an answer for that. I'm just saying, as a law-abiding citizen, I shouldn't have to change the way I have my guns, my pew-pews or whatever.
You know what that sounds like? It literally sounds like walking to the scene where there's people laying, bleeding out everywhere, and your first response is, make sure they don't take my gun rights for this shit. I gotta go home.
Oh no.
That's what it
no,
really
my response is today, and I'm so sorry to say it like this. Those are a few people on the street. They don't care about the people in the cities. Why should I care about 8 or 9 people in this on a news report when it comes to that? I mean, nobody cares about the inner cities. I have not seen any. No. I have not seen reverends or anybody in the cities caring about that. They don't care, and I don't care if you say, "Oh my God." I'm sorry in the comment section. I'm sorry to say it to you, but nobody cares about the Democratic cities.
Hang on, you're covering too much. Do you realize just what you just stated? Nobody gives a shit about what's happening in the inner cities, and then you respond with what you stated. Do you realize how insensitive that makes you sound?
when I see, excuse me, I'm so sorry, when I see Dick Durbin, for a senator of Chicago, sits there, cries about the 8 people that are in mass shootings, cries about changing gun laws, and during his term, thousands of African Americans and Hispanics shoot each other in Chicago. Thousands on his clocks. I wouldn't doubt there's 1 million people that died on his clock for inner cities.
But
So he's a hypocrite.
By the way, folks, tap the screen. As I always point out, you don't have to agree with the host. And understand this caller here's a perfect example. And this guy, we definitely cool people. But
absolutely,
tap the screen. This is a MAGA-friendly program.
And I love you, handsome.
As always, liberals are welcome as well.
Absolutely.
But let me ask you this, because if listening to what you're saying, Snuggles, it almost sounds like you're basically saying, if they don't give a damn about people dying in Chicago, I don't give a damn about the folks dying in Texas. That's really what you sound like you're saying.
You know what, handsome? I'm just aggravated. I do care. I'm aggravated, but I shouldn't have to change my being a law-abiding citizen. I shouldn't have to change the instruments that I have at home.
Okay, I'm going to take your statement of you saying I actually do care. Being ignorant on the topic, I'm going to admit ignorance and ask you, for someone as ignorant as me, give me your take on how you can convince me that you actually do care. What have you done? What do you feel? What do you want changed? What do you want addressed? Talking about the killings in Texas. You said
what they need to do, what the government has to do is fix mental illness. I don't know how they're going to do it. Do something in the schools. Get to know your children more. Instead of teaching transitioning children from boys to girls, maybe you should focus on how they are doing mentally. Maybe you shouldn't teach that stuff when you're a little child, and get them already mentally pressured into the future. Maybe we should start helping teens out that have developmental issues and mental issues while they're teenagers, and then get that going on. Huh?
Okay. Snuggles,
what do you think?
You know, it's always a pleasure. Come on back.
You know what, handsome? I love your shows. Seriously, I love talking to you. I wish I could talk to you for a few hours. One day we need a beer. We need to sit down and do it live together.
I don't drink, but if you can give me one with that trans person on there, I'll sit down and sip.
I can tell you, I get you a Bud Light, and I'll drink Modelo.
Gotta go. All right, folks, tap the screen. We should be around 50,000 likes. It's damn near 1,000 of you folks in here. It helps out the algorithms. Show your boy a little support by tapping the screen. Help your boy out. Looking in the comments, did he just say he wanted to ban beer? I don't think he said he wanted to ban beer, because he talked about a Modelo, but he's not a fan of Bud Light. He threw a lot of references in to be against trans. I mean, he's obviously not a fan of the transgender community, but it is what it is. All right, looking in the comments, Rich. Appreciate that, Rich one. Thank you for your generosity. Shout out to you, my love. All right, legal guns are not the problem. Well, legal guns are what's taking people out. We want to talk about the difference between Chicago and what's going on in some of these urban areas, but make no mistake about it, most of these mass casualty events, Crystal, thank you. A lot of these mass casualty events, they're happening by legal gun ownership. Ubalde, the only reason that happened is because the 18-year-old could legally purchase a weapon. And that's what that led to that. So most of these mass casualty events are by legal gun owners. It's not illegal until they start opening fire. It's a hell of a lot of that. Valley Girl, shout out to you and that TikTok cap that came in. Thank you, folks. You guys are very kind. All right, keeping it moving, we'll go right back to the box with Mookie. Good afternoon. Welcome to... Do we just ignore, at the end of the day, we just ignore people getting shot? Good afternoon, Mookie.
Handsome, how are you doing, my friend?
Doing good. Good. 2 events in Texas over the weekend. One of them involved a car, but at the end of the day, people are losing their lives at an alarming rate in this country, particularly with firearms. Do we just ignore that in favor of our rights?
No, but you know what? I think too many questions are asked and they're biased as far as what their answer is going to be. Too many people ask a question and it's so one-sided that you can't answer it and not sound like an insincere or an unhumane person.
What do you think? What do you think should be asked? If you had one question to ask that you felt would tackle this, what is the question you believe should be asked?
Why are we not looking at mental health? That's my thing, because if you look at gun violence, and it's horrible, it makes you want to throw up. But you ask the question, would you give up your rights to the gun to save lives? I think that was kind of an unbalanced question, because any human would say yes in their right mind. But I understand the right to bear arms and to keep them. I understood what he was saying,
But
but
wait a
it was
minute.
impossible for
It's
him to answer.
interesting. But wait a minute. It's interesting you said it. A human would say yes in regards to giving up the rights to own guns to save lives. Oddly enough, I didn't ask would you give up guns to save lives. I asked if you would give up one particular type of weapon. You still could own pistols. You could own shotguns, all sorts of stuff. I asked if you would just simply give up long rifles.
Right.
And folks, and
But
the guy
I
said no.
was making an extreme point for you.
Yeah.
As a Christian,
Yeah.
as a father, I'd give up every gun in the world to save a child's life. It's just not realistic, because if that's truly the question and the concern, why are Democrats fighting to keep abortions legal? Do you know the statistics as far as how many people are killed by guns as opposed to how many abortions there are in a year?
Well, I get. Yeah, but it's
Would
about
they
three
give up their
quarters of a
right?
million, 500.
Would they give up their right to
I
have
got.
an abortion to save those
Let me.
lives?
Yeah, and I can answer both of those questions. First, you asked why don't we tackle mental health, and then you talked about the insane amount of deaths with abortion. First of all, the reason we don't tackle mental health is obvious. If you believe any gun law that is allowed to get through the cracks is a stepping stone towards taking away all guns, then you're going to be against mental health, because the only way you can address mental health is with gun laws. If you go to the doctor and they say this, you lose that, or you must do that. So it's gun laws. So that is why folks, the same folks crying out about mental health, are actually against it. Because the mantra is any law that allows you to go into gun ownership is a stepping stone towards taking away all guns. So they don't want mental health to really be addressed, because it is indeed a gun law. In regards to abortion, comparing the number of deaths with abortion and saying, well, that shows the liberals are not that concerned with life. Well, most folks that are pro-choice do not see a embryo or a fetus as a child.
And that's a
It's not
shame.
viable to them.
Right.
Well, maybe so, but if you took a fetus at 6 weeks or whatever the hell it takes for it to become a fetus from an embryo, and you took that out of a woman, it's not viable. It's not a child yet. So that's the difference in that case. But I get your point.
Yeah, and that's all it was the point. It's like, pick your battles. If you took away the right, where every citizen, you just couldn't own a gun, damn well, just as much as I do, that a criminal would still get one. And that's an argument that I've heard a million times.
I disagree because if we want to go by the idea that if you ban guns, criminals will still get them, then why aren't people getting shot all over these other countries that have banned guns?
Well, then let's go what you got. Let's then be realistic and just hit it right on the head. You want to get rid of ARs or the right to own them. You don't think criminals are still going to find a way to get them?
Why isn't that happening in these other first world countries?
I can't answer that. I'm not even, and no offense, it doesn't really concern me. I'm just saying, I know that here in the United States, crime's through the roof. Criminals are still going to get their guns.
Here's why I believe it should concern us. If you have a neighbor, let's say you got a problem with dandelions growing in your yard, and you've tried all types of shit, and your neighbor doesn't have dandelions growing in their yard. What's wrong with asking your neighbors, what did you do? And I'm going to try that. If you got countries that are not having all of these gun deaths, that actually have done things, what's wrong with at least talking to them and considering their option. They're not having kids go to school and not come home. Why do we assume what they're doing in their countries is impossible to do here?
That makes sense. It just, but what works for the neighbor is not necessarily going to work for you. I mean,
But why
what if
not
they kill them
try
with
it
a
and
rock?
find out? Why not at least try it and find out? Why automatically assume how you're getting rid of your dandelions is not going to work on my lawn? You haven't
Well,
tried it.
because look at what they were just talking about with the other guy. I mean, how many? Why would you not ban just pistols then? Because more pistols have killed people in schools than any kind of AR. They keep calling them a weapon of mass destruction, a weapon of war. That's so incredibly untrue. It's not. I've been there. Nobody uses an AR-15 to go to war. I just think the pick your battle phrase should come into play here. I just think we're looking at the wrong thing. If you ban all guns and somebody wants to go murder somebody, they can hit them with a rock, hit them, with a car. It's like, hey,
Yeah, but I
I don't
keep
want any more car accidents, so we should ban cars. I mean, that's just
no, you
again pick
don't.
your battle.
If you don't want car accidents, let's take cars since you brought that up. We have a hell of a
Mhm.
lot of car accidents in this country, a lot of loss of life. Should we ban cars? Look at what happened when Henry Ford invented the automobile. If you look at the automobile back in the early 1900s when it was invented, you could drive on any side of the street. You could turn without telling anybody what the hell you were about to do. You could damn near ride on the sidewalk if they even had them back then. Now look at the way you have to use a vehicle when you got literally tens of millions of vehicles on the street, and the percentage of people having accidents is relatively low because there are so many laws addressing automobiles that have come down the pipe since the invention of the automobile. When it comes to firearms, we haven't done anything. No matter, even if you go from driving a Model T to a Ferrari, there's a hell of a lot of things you need to do. We've went from owning muskets to 100-round drum damn near auto fire weapons, and they passed no laws at all. Does that make sense?
No, zero. And that's why, well, look at the statistics on the Autobahn. There's less accidents on the Autobahn than there are on regular expressways and interstates in the US. Why is that when you can drive 8,000 miles an hour and do whatever you want?
Because
And I
they
don't,
have laws, because they have limited billboards. The road is banked and things like that, and it can handle you at higher speeds. They have limited exits. They've done things to the Autobahn to make it safer. When it comes to firearms, we have done nothing because we believe any law you pass is a stepping stone towards taking away all firearms. So the laws that we have aiming at firearms are literally centuries old. We haven't really done anything.
but do you really think that, because myself personally, I could care less if that is a gun, a weapon that is just on the hot list and in everybody's uh, list of guns that need to get taken away, do you really think that it's going to curb the amount of deaths or school shootings every year? Do you really
Well,
believe that?
that's a good question. I guess the way I would answer that question is because I don't have the knowledge. I would refer to what happened when they had an assault rifles ban under Bill Clinton. The powers that be are suggesting it did reduce homicides. Why would they say that? Did they make it up? AB, appreciate the hat and mustache.
Did you
They're
look good in
suggesting
that
that
hat?
when they had an assault rifles ban, the murder rate went down.
They suggested it. Who suggested that? I didn't
Well,
hear that.
the ATF, the federal government stated that during the time of the assault rifles ban, the number of folks being killed went down.
No, that's why they got rid of the ban, because it didn't curb it. They proved it the other way around.
Okay. All right.
That
Well,
that's that and that
I've
sucked,
heard.
but but that's why. And it wasn't a one. It sounded like a one-sided question when I asked you, because I don't know the answer either. Do you really think getting rid of and banning those guns, we'd have less mass, school shootings? I don't know. I don't think the majority of these school shootings were done by those weapons. Do you?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of them that have been. I mean, not all. You're right. More homicides happen with pistols, but the amount of these events that are using AR seems to be getting greater. It's happening, and probably because the media is sensationalizing the firearm. But at the end of the day, the amount of folks that are losing their lives to ARs does seem to be growing.
I agree. That's why I said I don't know. Is that actually going to work? I just think people in the U.S. will find other means, and that's
Then
why.
let them do that. Then let them do that. I'm going to go back to what I told you earlier on. I'm willing to try something and have it fail as opposed to doing nothing at all. If you take AR-15s away for a few years, is the American public really going to fall apart?
No, not at all.
Yeah,
That's why I said.
then try
That's
it.
why I said I think there's a lot of kicking and screaming. But
Right?
in their defense, I think it's more just like what you said. Okay, you're going to take away this one. What's next? It's just a stepping stone that people are not willing to allow them to take because they know what's coming next. And I agree with that
Right. And
concept, and I
as a
agree with that fear.
And as long as you have that mindset, we're never going to address mental
I
health because
agree.
it's going to be the same thing. If I go
Yep.
in and tell a doctor I need to be put on Lexapro or some depression drug, and they start checking into my gun ownership, next it'll be eye drops or something. They're going to have that same mindset when it
Yes,
comes
you
to
are right.
addressing mental health.
You are right. And then
Yeah.
people aren't going to
So,
want to get the proper mental health because they're like, oh shit, they're going to take away my guns. Never mind.
yep.
So it's
So
just
at
going
the
to
end of the
increase.
day, it is the gun owners like yourself that really is closed minded to getting anything done about this.
Yeah, I think it's a stalemate. It's a, oh, you want too much, so we're not giving you anything. I agree with
Yeah.
your concept as far as, hey, can we try it? And if we fail, okay, we got to try something else. I agree with that. Try it. I'm not that stubborn where I'm like, all right, here it is. I got other ones, but I'm not the one out there, blasting, children and are just, committing crimes. That's, I guess, why it doesn't bother me. If you think it's going to save lives, because I don't know, I don't agree with it, but I'll try it. I'm not
So
that
you're
damn
not.
stubborn.
I gotta move it on, but I will say before moving on. No, you're not out. You're not out there blasting children, but the ones that are out there blasting children are using the door you're leaving open to get the weapons required to do it. You're making their job possible. That's
Yeah.
what we're trying to say. I gotta move it on. No, come
Yep.
on back anytime, Mookie.
Appreciate you, brother. Take care.
Hey, absolute. Looking in the comments, I'd say no after watching what happened in Australia. Nope. Still smushy face. 1996, Australia took away firearms after having a mass casualty event, and they have not replaced it yet. Now, they obviously had issues with COVID where people were being forced to be vaccinated. So a lot of gun owners point to, well, if they had Second Amendment rights, Mookie, appreciate that. Thank you very much. Shout out to you. A lot of folks would suggest, well, if they had firearms, they could have stopped the government of Australia from force vaccinating them. I guess you're going to threaten to take the life of a government official as opposed to giving you the needle. I don't know. To me, that makes no sense at all. However, being candid, from the year 2005 to 2010, yours truly, I personally lived in Australia, lived in Brisbane, Australia's third largest city, over 1 million people. And I will tell you this, having been in Sydney, Melbourne, and all of the major cities in Australia and many suburbs, that country is safer than anywhere in America. You talk about, and we can compare. Now, obviously, Australia only has 20 million people whole as opposed to America with 350 million or whatever. But even city by city, I lived in Brisbane, a town with over 1 million people. So that's a big ass city. Easily would compare it to some of America's largest cities. The amount of crime in Brisbane is comparable to a mid-sized to small suburb in America. America's a violent ass place. It is a violent place. And the guns just make the violence even that more graphic. Going back to the box, we'll keep it moving with Moo, the tuxedo cat. I believe that. Talking about in regards to mass casualty events, doing absolutely nothing? Are we taking the right approach? Tuxedo, good afternoon.
What's going on, handsome liberal? How are you, man?
I don't know. I'm in the trenches yet another day. We're talking about in the state of Texas, they've had two mass casualty events. One involved a car,
Yeah.
but at an outlet mall, someone got out of the vehicle, opened fire immediately. Now, you often hear folks talk about, well, Chicago and its violence, and they're choosing gun-free zones to do this stuff.
Mhm.
Texas is not a gun-free zone. Yet
Yeah.
this stuff is happening in Texas on a regular basis. So what do you see as even a possibility of approaching this?
I mean, again, until you get the corporate money out of Washington, you're not going to get anywhere on it. You know, I hear a lot of your callers saying, well, they're not looking at mental health. They're not looking at this. And they're not looking at that. The truth is they're not looking at anything. Okay. Democrats aren't
No.
looking at anything. Republicans aren't looking at anything because they're busy taking money from the people selling everybody to guns. So nobody's
Yeah, but
looking
what
at
about?
anything.
Well, I got to kind of disagree with you. Biden is
Sure.
constantly promoting an assault rifles ban, even if it's the
Mhm.
wrong thing to do, which some folks
Okay.
would suggest. He is
So
actually trying to do something.
Okay, so sorry, Democrats had the control of the Senate, control of the House, and the presidency, and yet I saw no assault rifle ban passed. So next.
Well, we could easily respond to that. The Democrats
Sure.
had a slim majority. They had
Mm-hmm.
folks like Joe Manchin and
Uh-huh.
Kristen Sinema who did not follow Biden on hardly anything. And currently,
Uh-huh.
Kristen Sinema has left the party. So even though the
So that
Democrats had control of the Senate, they really
yeah.
didn't have control.
So that's an excuse for not putting forward any legislation because you don't
That's
think
an
it'll
excuse
pass,
to
so you
no.
just don't bother.
That's an excuse to answer your question of you got control. Why aren't you doing anything? In reality, no, they didn't have control. You
Okay,
got people
so
that are.
again, that's not an excuse not to put forward any legislation. You had full control. You should have put forward a bill and let the chips lie where they may. It had a better chance of passing than not because you had full control and yet
I
you
don't
didn't
get
do
how you
anything.
when you got Christian Sinema and Ron and Joe Manchin as senator. I don't understand where you're coming in with full control. That's not full control.
They were Democrats at the time, right? So if you can't get them to go along with your plans, then you must have a weak party. You must have an extremely weak party. You
I'll
can't convince
buy
your own
that.
members.
I'll buy that it's a weak party, but I don't buy that he was in control. That's the part I
So,
disagree with.
so again, there's no excuse. You should have put forward some legislation, and if it passed, you would have got something done. And if it didn't, you're in no worse a place than you are now. But at least you would have showed the voters you were trying.
So at the end of the day, you say neither party is doing anything. Let's say you were promoted to president and you had control. You had control of the Senate and you had control of Congress. What would you propose?
I would executive order a ban on assault weapons. I wouldn't even put it through Congress. I'll let the Supreme Court take it up if they have a problem with my executive order. I'll let them shoot it
You,
down. I would straight up ban assault rifles the first day. It would be one of the first orders I sign.
how do you respond to folks who point out that more murders are committed with handguns than assault rifles and it's not going to make any difference?
I would say show me the numbers first. Because I don't know your numbers, right? I don't know where you're getting your numbers
Yeah.
from. You could be full of shit right now. I don't know that.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. And I was bringing that up with the last callers that yeah, we don't. At the end of the day, numbers can be skewed, so we really do not know the numbers. So you're going with an assault rifles ban. What about the idea that the Second Amendment is a constitutional right that shall not be infringed upon? You're infringing, right?
Yeah, sure, I'm infringing. And guess what? I don't care. I don't care. You guys infringe on people's rights to vote all the time. You guys limit the people's right to vote all the time. You limit you've done a bunch. You're trying to take away abortion. I mean, you guys limit rights all the time, and then you want to get on everybody else for Second Amendment. The Second Amendment is trash, dude. It's the trashiest amendment we have. If the Constitution was a good constitution, it would promise you the right to housing. It would promise you the right to clean air. It would promise you the right to clean water. A gun doesn't fucking matter whatsoever. Not even a little bit.
So is it safe to say that you would be okay with taking away the Second Amendment altogether? You said it's the trashiest amendment out of
Yeah,
all of them.
yeah. If they threw that away, I wouldn't care at all. And people in chat are asking, "What's an assault rifle?" Anything that's not a revolver, anything that is not a revolver that can shoot in quick succession, I consider an assault weapon. And whether that's right or wrong by definition, I don't really give a crap. Okay.
Let me respond. Let me also respond to that, because I take odds at the notion that I get folks on the right. There is no such thing as an assault rifle. You liberals don't know shit about guns. You
I
know
don't
where
need to
the
know about
term
guns.
you know where the term assault rifle came from. Talking to the audience. Type
I don't
in
care.
assault rifle and type in assault rifle magazine cover on Google.
Yeah.
The reason the word assault rifle is thrown around so damn much is when they got the right to sell that shit back in the 80s, that's what they were calling them on the gun magazine covers. There are a host of gun magazines, guns
Yeah.
and ammo and things like that, that have pictures of those firearms, and they call them assault rifles.
Yeah.
That's where
I
that
don't
term
care.
came from.
I don't care about the definitions. I don't care about the words. That doesn't matter at all. People just want to use that as some kind of excuse to say that, oh, well, you can't regulate guns because you don't know anything about them. The
Yeah.
only thing you need to know about guns is when you pull the trigger, it destroys something. Whether that's a person, a piece of fruit, a piece of paper, it doesn't matter. And that's all you need to know about a gun. And by the way, I was
So
military for 6 years.
what about citizens complaining that they would lose the right to defend themselves under your administration, removing guns altogether?
Go get a bow and arrow, dude. Go get a baseball bat. I don't really care. It's not my problem. You need to
But
defend
wait a
yourself. It's
minute.
not my
But
problem,
hold on a second.
right?
But hold on. We know the predominant voter, the ones who can be most relied upon to show up to the polls, are elderly folks. Let's say you get a woman that's in her 70s or something, lives alone, and she says, I want to be able to protect myself. You're going to tell this elderly woman to get a bat or a bow and arrow?
No, I'll tell the elderly woman to stay inside and don't open up her door, especially if it's a young kid who may be mistaken at the wrong house, right? Don't open your door,
That's
lady,
what
because you
you
might do something stupid.
that's what you would tell an elderly voter that wanted to protect herself to stay in the house?
Here's the thing, man. It's your job to protect yourself. It's more important that children are safe in society, and you figure out how you're going to protect yourself, my dude. That's not my problem. You protecting yourself isn't my problem. That's your problem. My problem
Whatever
is
happened to
children
Bill
dying. That's my problem.
Whatever happened to Bill Clinton's I feel your pain? When you're gonna tell a constituent that's not my
I'm not
problem.
running for office. I don't need to tell a constituent anything. I'm not running for
All
office.
right.
I'll tell you right now. I don't care how you guys protect yourselves. Figure it out. It's not my problem. If you need to protect yourself that badly, maybe you should stop pissing people off.
Okay. All right, that's a pretty hard-nosed approach. I gotta move it on, Tuxedo. You know how we do. Come on back in here anytime.
Later, my friend.
Hey, not a problem. All right, folks. Comments. There are, what the hell did that say? There are areas that it's against the law not to own at least one gun. They have zero problems. What area in America that it is against the law not to own a gun? That makes no sense at all. I'm going to tell you from a standpoint of the Second Amendment. If you believe in the Constitution and you believe in having rights, such as the right to bear arms, you should also believe that you have a right not to have one if you don't want one. What kind of government entity can force you to be armed? You may not be the type of guy that should have a damn firearm. That's got to be the dumbest thing I've ever heard of. For you folks who have seen the movie Saving Private Ryan, it featured a character who actually was so afraid of war that he stood in the stairwell while one of his own brothers in arms was killed when he could have literally stepped in the room and shot everybody in there. He was that afraid of getting in a gunfight. You want people like that to have a firearm? Everybody's not meant to take a life. Period. That's why people avoid the draft. Everybody's not meant to own a gun. To have a society that demands everyone carries a firearm, you might as well just come out and say you don't give a damn about mental health, because obviously every society has mentally ill people in it. Why would you hand out guns to everybody? That just makes no sense at all. Any society that does that is crazy. Cowards who can't fight love AR-15s. Wow, Django's angry son. That's horrible. It's in a different country, not America. Shaking my head. Well, even in a different country, I bet they're having problems with that. I bet there are people using those firearms improperly, or I bet there are firearms in the hands of people who would not use it if it came down to it. Taking a life takes a special set of balls. It takes a different type of mentality. Everybody's not designed to do that. Also, if you notice, when a lot of folks come home from being in a conflict where they had to take lives, they're often mentally messed up because they come back to a civilized society. Oftentimes they cannot turn it off. It takes a certain mentality to take a life. You just can't hand everybody in the population a firearm. I would submit that's just a recipe for trouble. Going back to the comments, and someone said it takes mental illness. Damn right. Let's keep it going. The Honorable Dime Bag 2020. Appreciate that. Subscribe. Whoever subscribed. Heather, thank you. Thank you for that, Heather. Do appreciate that. I don't get a lot of subscribers, so definitely appreciate it. Dimebag 2022. Good afternoon.
What's going on?
Not much. I appreciate you holding. I saw you in there. Where am I getting it wrong yet? Now, I know you lean right. Obviously, I lean left. Tell me what I'm getting wrong.
Okay. Let's talk about some statistics. Now,
Okay.
let's just say for the sake of kitty cat that we ban all of our guns for everybody here in the United States. Now we're going to talk some facts. Okay? We're going to go way back in history. Not real far. We're going to start off with 1911. Okay? In 1911, Turkey disarmed all their citizens. From 1915 to 1917, 1.5 million Armenians who were disarmed were rounded up and exterminated.
Mm-hmm.
In 1929, Soviet Union disarmed all their citizens. From 1929 to 1953, 20 million people were rounded up and exterminated. 1938 in Germany, they disarmed their people. From 39 to 45, 13 million Jews and others who couldn't defend themselves were rounded up and exterminated. 1956, Cambodia. From 75 to 77, 1 million educated people, these were educated people, were rounded up and exterminated because they didn't want the people smarter than them.
I get the point you're making. You're talking about tyranny. Now, I have to ask you this though.
Now, Venezuela disarmed their citizens just a couple years ago, shot and killed hungry people that were fighting to get food.
Yeah, but wait. Okay, let me respond. I get where you're going. You're talking about countries that took away firearms and then imposed mayhem on their people. You're talking about tyranny. However, you do realize for every country that you name that took away firearms and then became tyrannical to their people, we could name other countries that took away firearms, had a reduction in murder rate, and it's all roses and rainbows. We can talk about Australia. We can talk about Norway. We can talk about England. What about those countries?
Do you trust your government?
I don't listen. I'll say this. I don't.
Do you trust your government?
Let me respond to that. I don't trust my ex-wife, but I don't think she's going to come to my house and murder me. It is levels to distrust.
Okay, these people, they didn't think that their governments were going to turn on them either.
So you're expecting the citizens of Australia to be rounded up and taken out like this eventually because they don't have guns?
They very well could be.
I just don't.
If we give up our guns, we have no chance. If they do, we have no chance whatsoever.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. You're basically saying that firearms is like an insurance against a tyrannical government. I don't totally disagree with that, but I often point out when you purchase insurance, there are things that come along with insurance, such as premiums and deductibles. We have insurance to help protect us against tyranny, as you're pointing out, the government rounding us up Hitler style. However, what are the premiums and deductibles? Mass casualty events happening almost every other day now. So at some point, we have to ask ourselves, is the deductibles and the premium worth more than the actual insurance? I mean, I'm not going to pay a $10,000 premium per month to cover this damn car. At some point, it becomes too much.
It's not the government's business whether you have a gun or not.
I'm not here to talk about whether it's the government's business or not. I'm talking about there's loss of life in mass casualty events starting to happen almost weekly, if not even more. Do we just ignore that under the guise that we want to have a right to bear arms?
No, I already said it's not a gun problem. It's a mental illness problem in this country.
Okay, let's go with that. Mental illness. If you were promoted to, say, governor of a state, what would you do to tackle mental illness?
Psych tests. They did.
So to
People,
own a firearm, what kind of a test would I have to go through?
you would have to take a psych test, a psychology test, a psych test,
What are they?
mental
What are they checking? What are they asking me?
a mental acuity test.
So I'm gonna give you an example. I asked someone before. I'm an Iraq veteran, or I just came back from Afghanistan. This is not true, so I don't want to be accused of stolen valor. But let's say I just came back from a war
Right.
zone. And I've told my doctor in the middle of the night, I often wake up screaming from the stuff I saw while I was overseas. I
Okay.
do own a weapon. Should I be allowed to keep that weapon?
Yes. But
What kind of? Go ahead.
at the same time, you should be placed with the VA into the hands of mental professionals to talk about your PTSD that you're having. Trust me,
The VA,
I have
the VA is
PTSD.
so bad. The VA is so bad at dealing with veterans. We just
No,
had a
they're
mass
not.
casualty event at the VA. Somebody
No,
just
the
shot up the VA last week.
the VA is not bad at helping the veterans with PTSD. I got out the service in '92 from the Iraq War, and I came home with PTSD, and it didn't affect me until 30 years later. I had a flashback. I worked 2 full-time jobs just to keep everything buried, and as soon as I started having issues, I started looking for someone to help because I knew I was not right in the head. So you go to the VA, and the first thing they do is they will set you up with mental health and start getting you the help immediately. You have to find them. They don't know you have issues, but you
But the whole time,
as military, you should know.
but you're saying the whole time while this person is seeking help at the VA and them dealing with him, he should still be allowed to be armed the entire time.
Until he says, because you will be asked, and I'm asked every time. Tomorrow I have a doctor appointment with my mental health advisor, doctor, because he checks up on me still every 4 months. He'll ask me, okay, how have you been feeling with your depression, your anxiety? I have to answer like 30 questions. I have a firearm. He will ask me about the firearm. The firearm's locked up. It's locked up under 2 different locks. The bullets are in another place. And it's done that way on purpose. My wife knows where
How do
it's
you
at.
feel about Okay, how do you feel about folks in the comments pointing out that you can go to a mental health professional and lie because you want to maintain your gun rights?
If you're from the if you came back from the military and you tell your doctors you're having those dreams, there's no way to lie now.
Okay. Let me present it to you this way, because you mentioned the VA and getting help. Let's say the same event happened from someone who didn't have Veterans Administration benefits, such as someone has had their home broken into before. And while they were actually there, they were held at gunpoint. The house was being burglarized. It sounds extreme, but it happens every damn day in this country.
Right.
That person has went out and purchased themselves a firearm, but they've told the doctor, I'm waking up in the middle of the night paranoid because of what happened. Should they be allowed to keep that firearm?
The doctor still has to do a mental evaluation on them. I was a nurse for 10 years. Your doctor still has to do a mental evaluation on you. That's one of the
Yeah.
protocols. They didn't used to.
I'm hearing what you're saying. And even though you're talking about addressing mental health, it sounds like the bar for what would get your weapon confiscated is high enough that mentally ill people would still be walking around armed. I mean, if you're waking up in the middle of the night screaming, to me, that is clear as day you have a mental health issue. But you're basically saying as long as you're talking to a doctor, you should still be able to be armed while this is happening.
Viola, the Iraq War started in 1998 or 1988. And the bulk of it started in 1999. So your 2003 is wrong. It was called Operation Desert Storm.
Okay, I didn't say nothing about 2003. What are you talking
No,
about?
Viola in the comments trying to say the Iraq
Okay.
War
All right.
started in 2003. It was called Operation Desert Storm, Operation Desert
Shield.
Freedom, I believe. Desert
Well,
Shield.
Desert Storm, and Desert Shield is from the '90s, I believe. In Operation Iraqi Freedom, that's the after 9/11 stuff, if I'm correct.
It started in '89,
Yeah. Okay. All
late
right.
'80,
Fair
late
enough.
'88, early '89, because I was
Yeah.
over there in '89
Yeah,
and
that
'90.
stuff is that stuff was Desert Shield, Desert Storm. You're talking about from the late '80s to the early '90s. That was Desert Shield and Storm. Operation Enduring Freedom and Iraqi Freedom. That's the after 9/11 stuff. So and that happened under George W. The other one happened under George H.W. I gotta move it on, no dime bag.
That's all
Appreciate it
right.
and thank you for your service, man. Appreciate it.
Thank
Come on
you.
back anytime.
All right.
Absolutely.
Thank you for
All
letting
right.
me speak.
Looking in the comments. So you're not at war any longer. You don't need a damn AR-15, Angie. A lot of folks agree with that. A lot of folks do believe that. But as many folks have stated in the that have come on and stated that it's not that they feel they need an AR. It's kind of like the "it's my money and I want it now" commercial, where you don't really need it, you just want it because you can have it. That's what it sounds like we're dealing with when it comes to the AR-15. Is that most American gun owners don't have an AR-15. Most American gun owners don't want an AR-15. But if you ask most American gun owners, do you want the right of the AR-15 to be taken away, they're going to say no. So, which is why I asked the previous caller if you could give up AR-15, if you could give up the AR-15 option to save lives, would you do it? They all said no. They all said no. All right, looking in the comments, JG Wentworth. Yeah, exactly. Tap the screen. Should have been up to 100,000, but I appreciate you folks getting your boy up to 66,000. 80,000 would be nice. Show your boy some sentiment. As always, the program is MAGA friendly. It will forever remain MAGA friendly in its entirety. Nevertheless, liberals are welcome on the program as well. Solemn promise on every broadcast, we do not block, ban, or censor anyone for their commentary. The fact that you might disagree with yours truly never means a damn thing. So don't ever Don't ever look at the name of the program. Rich, yeah, appreciate the hat. Don't ever look at the name of the program and feel as though your ability to speak here will be limited or censored in any way, fashion, or form. It's never about the host coming across as a know-it-all. Hell, I'm ignorant on a lot of subjects, and you folks happily educate me all the time. Definitely appreciate that. So I don't talk down the guests or prevent folks from stating things because my opinion is no more valuable than yours. Everyone has a right to their opinion. We do that here. Appreciate that earphone or headphones there, Valley Girl. Love the name, by the way, too. All right, going back to the box. We'll keep it moving with your Avon lady. Let's keep it going. There you go. What do you think? Would you be willing to give up your right to an AR if you thought it could save lives?
Heck yes. And I don't have an AR. I have a deer rifle, a bird gun, and a baseball bat.
But if someone's coming in your home at 3:00 in the morning, you're not going to grab a baseball bat, are you?
Well, the dog will slow him down enough for me to grab it. But let me tell you something, what's going to happen. If we don't do something about this gun situation, Generation X and not Gen X, Gen Z and the Alpha generation are going to call a constitutional Congress, and they're going to change the Second Amendment. That's
Are
what's
you
going to
talking
end up
about
happening.
that? What is it? A convention of the states or something like that? Are you talking about something like that?
No, I mean they're gonna change the Second Amendment if we don't do something. If we don't make some kind of federal regulation with these guns and all the killings that are happening or the unalivings, those generations.
Do you think we currently have enough support to get that done? And the reason I'm asking you that, you
No,
pointed out the younger generations, but the
right.
unfortunate issue is the younger generations, when it comes to actually showing up to the polls and voting, they're not reliable. Like, for instance, a hell of a lot of young folks support Bernie Sanders. But when you look at the percentage that actually showed up and voted, it's not like the older generation that would favor keeping the Second Amendment in place. So I agree with you. The younger generation would want that. But do we have enough of them willing to show up to the polls and vote to actually make it happen?
They showed up more than they have in the past in 2020.
Yeah. What do you think the older generation would do, though, if it appeared as if the younger generation was trying to take away their Second Amendment rights?
I don't know, but it's going to happen if we don't do something.
I can't see it. I mean, because there are so many liberals as well that do support the right to bear arms. They just want to get rid of some of the more powerful and high capacity magazine stuff. But even most liberals are in favor of like shotgun and pistol ownership.
Right.
So I don't see how the what is it, Generation Z? You mentioned the Alpha generation. What the hell is that?
That's you go from Z to A, and they're calling Generation A the Alphas.
What age, like what year time span were they born? The Alpha, what is this, in the 2010s or something? When does that come along?
Something like that.
Yeah, I haven't heard of that. The Alpha
Sometime
generation.
after that. But
Don't sound like the Alphas.
In the next
Alpha
20,
don't
30
sound like.
years.
Yeah, wow. I can't, you might be right, but I don't know. I understand the younger generations are far more progressive, far more to the left. But when you start talking about banning guns, I'd be curious to see. I'm not going to say that you're totally wrong, but to me, it sounds like they would have a hell of an uphill battle. I don't think they're going to ban guns in this country, at least in my lifetime.
Mm-hmm.
And that
I
would
don't either.
hopefully I'll live long enough to see some of the alphas become adults, but I can't see it. I mean, you got folks that are threatening civil unrest if they take the Second Amendment away.
Well, we'll see with the generations coming up. I guess they're from 2011 to present is the generation Alpha.
Okay, so they're really young. They're
Yeah,
currently like, yeah,
they're
they're
getting
like high
shit.
schoolers.
They're the ones getting pew-pewed in the
That is a
school.
good point. That is a good point that they may be more in favor of because they are the ones that are even when you talk about crime in Chicago and things like that, it is the younger generation. You're right. They're the ones that are actually getting shot because I had a caller come on here and say that. Like, I'm not out here taking anybody's lives and things like that. So he wasn't as concerned. But you're correct. That generation is the ones that are actually hitting the ground when they're getting hit. So
Yeah.
yeah, you might have a point there.
They're going through the active pew-pewer drills in schools. They're having to go through all of this, and I'll tell you what, that takes a toll on a person. I remember when we had duck and cover drills in case of nuclear proliferation from
Yeah.
Russia.
Yeah, during the Cold War, I do remember that. But let me ask you, as a voter yourself, would you personally, as a voter, support a total gun ban in this country?
You know, as things are as they are right now, I would. I would vote for that.
Wow, wow. All right, that yeah, I don't think we'll see it in our lifetime, but
No,
that's definitely a huge change. How would they remove 400 million guns from the population?
you couldn't. You couldn't.
What about the
But that's
notion? What
why
about the? Go
That's
ahead.
why it needs to change now. It needs to be so hard to get a gun. You need to prove yourself like you have to prove you're ready to drive and able to drive and you have insurance and you're responsible if something happens with your pew pew and you have to be mentally fit and you have to register and you have to redo it every so many years or months. You have to redo all this to just show that you are still safe to own one.
What
And
about the
you don't,
notion? Yeah, but what about the claim or the notion that if you ban guns, only criminals will have guns? Let's say you do what you suggested, all of the guns get taken away, and then all of a sudden someone does go somewhere and take out 40, 50 people in a church or some gathering, and the constituents, the voters step up and say, if one of us had been allowed to carry a damn gun, we could have took this guy out. As a politician, how do you respond to something like that?
there's always going to be that segment of the population that is going to break laws. No matter what your gun laws are, there's always going to be criminals and bad guys. You're never
You
going to
think
get
that
rid
would
of that.
you think in a town hall that statement would work if some of the family's victims were there?
So, see, here's the thing. With these weapons of war, you're able to get rid of 30 people in 30 seconds. If you limited the clips, you're still going to have mass unalivings. But what's going to happen is they're going to unalive 5 people in 30 seconds
Yeah.
instead of
You almost
30.
sound like there's a commercial out where a guy is using a musket and he goes into his office and he's trying to go postal, but he has a musket loader and the minute he
Right.
fires the
And
first
they're
shot,
all running.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's what you're basically saying if you reduce the amount of firepower, the amount of victims would go down as well.
Yep.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. But what about in cases where you got 3 or 4 people that come into a home and you're sitting there with a 6-shot revolver or something because of the law, and if 2 or 3 of them have firearms, you don't have enough ammunition.
Well, if that's the case, run, hide, fight, whatever you got to do to survive.
You're gonna have a hard time getting. You're gonna have a tough sell getting people to run from their own home, though. I mean, this
You
is a
know,
person in their own home defending their house. You're telling them to abandon their own homestead
my bull mastiff would take care of 2 of them.
with guns. Your dog. If the assailants had firearms, you think your dogs can take care of that?
They'd bounce right off his skull.
All right, some tough ass dogs. I gotta move it on, Avon. Appreciate you coming in here.
Thank you.
Absolute. All right, look at the comments. The dog carries. what is that says? Luck the off-duty cop was listening to the scanner this weekend in Texas. Oh, really? I didn't know that, Bam Bam. All right. I had to check that out. You let me know more about that. More bullets out of gold and charge a lot. You know, that kind of goes back to a Chris Rock comedy special where he said, in regards to dealing with firearms, charge a fortune for bullets. And I think he used a joke like, I would shoot your ass if it didn't cost me $500 per bullet or something like that. This guy is talking about making the bullets out of gold. You know, the crazy thing is, though, if I decide to pop your ass, considering how much it costs to take that shot, I may have to dig that back up out of you. Hold on a second. Don't drive off. Get that shit back up out of him. I mean, you put $2,000-$3,000 worth of gold in that guy. You know, take this knife, get that shit before we leave out of here. All right, looking in the comments. Dismantle the PLCAA. Bush signed the law in 2005. I don't know what that is. I'm going to plead ignorance. PLCAA, Papa Lima Charlie Alpha Alpha. What is that? Just look at Tennessee. They're trying to kick the young out. Roderick Williams. Well, we do know that when folks do not vote the way politicians want, they do try to prevent them from voting at all. That does happen. It wouldn't surprise me if Tennessee is doing that. You're talking about the legislators that got kicked out of the Capitol building or whatever. They got voted back in, I think, out there. The 2 African Americans, and there was a Caucasian woman who only survived by 1 vote. I think that's what you're talking about. Each bullet should have that's an interesting one. Each bullet should have your information on them to track who shot them. Shout out to Biggie Smalls. Who shot you? You know, that's an interesting one. Out of pocket. I don't know, because projectiles do warp quite a bit when they hit you, particularly if they hit bone. They can often shatter into pieces. And you best believe if the citizens know that the tracking information is on the firearm or on the bullets, they're going to make it so that those bullets either shatter into a hell of a lot of pieces or go completely through the target and, you know, fly on down the road somewhere where they're hard to retract. But that's an interesting one. Bullets that have some sort of information in them so you can track them. That would be interesting. Looking in the why are Trump turds such whiny little weirdos, says Sane American. Well, there's no shortage of whining no matter what side of the aisle you're on. Some would point to the LGBT community from the right side of the aisle and say that they're whining. Some have suggested that Black Lives Matter is whining. I'll give you an example that yours truly I'm not a fan of, even though I lean left. The outcry in regards to the subway passenger that was choked and lost his life in New York. There's no way I'm looking at that and believing that's racial. I believe they are taking that too far, making a racial issue out of something that is not racial. Now, this is my humble opinion. I don't know what the hell's actual reality, but I do genuinely believe there was no effort to take that guy's life. He's trying to restrain the guy and overdid it. This isn't Derek Chauvin with George Floyd. This is not that. I believe this guy was genuinely trying to be a good Samaritan and overdid it. I don't believe it's racial. I just do not, because in the case of where he was located, if like with George Floyd and Derek Chauvin, if Derek Chauvin was not a police officer, that crowd would have got on his ass. The reason they didn't go after him is because he had backup other police officers in the uniform. If they believed that guy on the ground was attacking that black guy, talking about on the subway, and it was a racial issue, I do believe other patrons would have gotten involved and stopped him. I don't believe that they felt his life was in danger. I just don't believe that. And I see in the comments, 15 minutes is a ridiculous amount of time to hold someone down. And he wasn't alone. We're going after the individual who placed him in the headlock, but there were other folks grabbing his feet and things like that. I don't believe they thought they were cooperating in an intentional murder. I don't see it that way. But I'm willing to have folks, let me know where you think I'm wrong, but I don't believe that the folks that are protesting and are making it sound like it's some Black Lives Matter event or something like that. I just don't see it. And someone, Fancy Prancy, is stating that one of them was black. I'd have to look at the video again, but I do believe if the folks on that train viewed that guy, the Marine that was putting them in the headlock, the same way that crowd viewed Derek Chauvin, they would have got involved. The fact that Derek Chauvin was a cop was the only thing that stopped that crowd from getting involved. Because they was already calling him names, saying he was a buster. They wanted to get involved in that. It's just the power of the badge and gun. The guy in New York didn't have the power of the badge and gun, and he's already on the damn ground placing this guy in a headlock. If they thought it was a racial incident, I think they would have stepped on his head and tried to get involved. I just personally do not believe the folks that were there that day believed that that guy was actually trying to kill him. I just think they would have stopped it. Unless we want to believe that everybody on that train was okay with that guy losing his life. And I don't buy that. I don't believe that. Now, Lat says he murdered that guy. Yeah, he did take his life. He did take his life. I'm just simply saying I don't believe it was racially oriented, and I don't believe it was intentional. That's what I'm saying. It doesn't matter what you believe. They killed the man. It could have been you. Would it matter? No, I mean, if it's unintentional, it's unintentional, even if it is my ass. I'm just simply saying that I don't believe it was an intentional homicide. I just don't. I don't think that guy got on there and saw this guy acting up and stated, well, I'm about to go over here and kill him. I just don't see it. I think that he may have overreacted. He certainly had him in a headlock. 15 minutes is a long ass time. But I do believe other passengers, other patrons on that train, if they believe that he was trying to kill that guy, at the very least they would have been yelling out to stop or trying to prevent. I don't care how crazy somebody's acting on the subway. Yours truly, 30 years in Chicago. I've been on the subway numerous times. If someone is on the subway committing an act like that, at the very least, people are going to yell out. Anybody who lives in a town where they have subway, we've all seen crazy ass folks on the subway. I've seen guys get on the subway butt ass naked, sit down next to you, dick hanging out and every damn thing. You don't kill the guy for it, I get it. But at the same time, if somebody does, other folks are going to tell you, you need to let up. You know, this is too long. The fact that no one on that train did that shows that, in my opinion, they didn't think this guy was losing his life. I don't think anybody wanted that guy to pass away. Looking in the comments. All he had to do was give him $2. He was asking for food. You don't have to give anybody anything. Yesterday, you can't force people to give you money. I mean, I just gave a guy $10 today for some bullshit. Said he was hurting, but you can't force people to look out for you under fear of their safety. That's not how it's done. It can lead to stuff like this. We're talking about a gun debate now. You can't threaten people because you're going through hardship. You can't do that. Looking into the comments. Or better yet, going back to the box, right liberty. Wait a minute, I had somebody in there. Okay, right libertarian, we'll make it happen. Good afternoon, right libertarian. Appreciate you holding. We're talking now, as a libertarian, I'm going to assume you're certainly pro-Second Amendment. Am I correct?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I actually I had another account, right libertarian guy. You might remember it.
Yeah, of course. So,
I've been in
but
here before,
So what do you feel about folks pointing out, and I guess it is a fact, more and more of these mass casualty events are happening with AR-15s. Now, obviously more homicides happen with pistols, but the AR-15 does seem to increasingly be involved in more and more events. How do you feel about folks suggesting that we try to ban assault rifles?
Yeah, I would say that's unethical. The ethics of it, why ought the government be able to determine what type of tool I use to defend myself against that tyrannical government? That would be like a burglar kicking in your door and telling you can only use a Nerf gun while he has a 45.
Yeah, but if the government wants to kick in your door nowadays, they have drones, cruise missiles, and things like that. Are you in favor of people having that too?
If the government has it, I'm in favor of it. Although I'm not in favor of the government having it.
Well, we know the government has anthrax, ricin, mustard gas. because they actually officially have that, you are in favor of the citizens having access to that as well.
Yeah, if you're going to remove weaponry from the citizens, you also need to remove weaponry from the government and military as well. Otherwise, you're just creating a tyrannical police state.
Why do we automatically assume that the government is going to become horrible if we don't have guns? I mean, there are so many examples around the world of unarmed populaces that are functioning fine. Why do we automatically go to the worst case examples? As somebody on here who brought up Hitler and Venezuela and all of the worst countries in the world that have done things once the populace was unarmed. What about the countries that didn't do it? Why do we just automatically assume that other Americans that are in government are going to do all of this horrible stuff to us?
Yeah, so those countries are also tyrannical because without the safeguard of something like the Second Amendment, and I generally don't even like appealing to the Constitution, but without a safeguard of such, um, anything that these people that reside within this nation think are a right, they have no rights. They are merely just things the government allows them to do. The only reason why we have any rights, like freedom of speech, freedom of religion, so on and so forth, is because of the safeguard of the Second Amendment. The Second Amendment is the only thing that ensures all the other amendments. And once you get rid of that, all we have is stuff that the government allows us to do.
And see, here's why I disagree with that. I'm not going to, there's no other way to claim that. This is not going to sound good, but I always invite folks to state their opinion regardless. And I'm going to say this. The idea that the Second Amendment protects all of the other amendments, I have to bring up the white privilege argument. And the reason I do that is because I'm black. We've had the Constitution since 87 or whatever the hell it came out. And they were violating my constitutional rights the entire time while the Second Amendment was in place. So the idea that the Second Amendment is the only thing that defends your rights, I got to give you the example of being African American. The government of the United States has been tyrannical for at least its first couple hundred years, even though the Second Amendment was in existence. And not even from the African American standpoint, it was tyrannical against women. Women did not have even a shred of freedoms compared to men for most of America's history. You didn't get the right to vote as a woman until like what, 1920? Almost 150 years after the Constitution. Yet the Second Amendment was there all the whole time. So I don't understand why folks are suggesting that the Second Amendment somehow grants you rights.
Well, no, that's not what I'm saying. The Second Amendment, the Constitution, no government grants you rights. These are human rights that are innate by virtue of being human. And the Constitution, I think, just expands upon that.
But you
I'm
said
actually
tyranny.
not.
You said
Yeah,
the
they are.
Second Amendment.
Yeah, they are tyrannical. We have that in place to use against them. Just because we haven't used it against them does not mean that that is not the purpose of it. However, the government. I agree with you. The government has been tyrannical. They still are tyrannical. And if you take away the only safeguard against them, do you think it's going to become more tyrannical or less tyrannical?
Listen, I don't know how much worse it can get than slavery. I mean, what more can you get?
Get down to genocide.
That was happening during slavery. They were doing that too. I look at it this way. Every female slave just about in American history was a victim of rape. That's how they produce new slaves. They would literally bring a dude in there and say, you're about to mate. She didn't have the option to say no. We don't bring that up in our history that much, but I'm just simply saying, I don't see how it could get any worse than what it's already been.
Okay, so say it doesn't get worse, it just eventually reverts back to that being that we now have no constitutional rights and they have no problem with, through as we've seen through American history, infringing upon human rights. So it would end up, it may not be immediate, but it would end up reverting. But to the topic, you were talking about specifically banning the AR-15, correct?
Right.
What is special about the AR-15? other than the fact that it's used in certain incidences?
Well, the accuracy, first of all, you can use it you can use it more accurately from a longer distance. That's one of the issues. Well, I suppose you can get a drum for a pistol and things like that, but just the fact that the thing has far less recoil and stuff makes it far more accurate, right?
Not necessarily, and there's tons of weapons that are manufactured within the same type of fashion that an AR-15 is. And but to get to the crux of it, the reason why you want to ban this is to save lives, right?
Right.
Okay, so do you think that the most ethical action is inaction?
No.
Why?
Inaction does nothing. I don't ever think doing nothing is the solution.
Okay, so I'll propose you with a little scenario. There's a trolley on the track. You probably heard this. There's a trolley on the track. There's 100 people on one track. It's heading for the 100 people. Do you then? There's a lever right there. Would you pull? And on the other track that it will turn to, there's 10 people. Would you pull uh, that lever and kill those 10 people to save those 100 people? Or is the most ethical action to take no action and just let the course play out as it would?
Well, if I'm a politician, I'm gonna pull the lever. I mean, if it comes down to saving 10, I mean saving 100 and sacrificing 10, just maybe it's wrong. Folks might say I'm going to go for the 10. That's what I would do.
So you're coming more from a utilitarian aspect where the ends justify the means,
I'm trying to
regardless
save
of
as
if
many
it ends up
lives as
taking lives.
possible. I'm trying to save as many lives as possible. Whatever term you want to give, we can go with that. But at the end of the day, if I'm saving 90 lives, that's what I'm gonna go with.
So as long as it saves lives, it's worthy to take lives. Granted,
If
none
I
of these
only
lives
have a
are,
choice, wait a minute. If I got
guilty
a
of
choice,
anything.
if I got a choice to derail the trolley altogether, I'm gonna do that. But if it comes down to where somebody's going to die no matter what, then I'm gonna choose the option that has the least amount of casualties.
So the difference in the two situations, though, is by letting the course of action take place, you're not guilty of killing these people. By taking this action,
Well,
you are now guilty of killing 10 people.
that's true, and for some strange reason, I might be wrong, but I believe, listening to what you're saying, is the course of action you thought I would take. But at the end of the day, I am going to focus on saving lives. If I have to take out 10 to save 100, no different than what a general might do. If it requires you to sacrifice 10 soldiers to save the entire warship, you're going to do that. So I'm going to sacrifice the small amount to save the larger amount of us. I'm not going to sit there and not push the lever at all so I can say nobody died under my watch. No, in my case, in my belief, if you know it's a 10 on one track and 100 on the other track and you choose to do nothing, you're responsible for the deaths of whoever dies in that anyway. So I'm still going to believe that you're responsible.
Okay, so let's make it more analogous to what we're talking about with gun deaths.
Sure.
So on the track that it's heading towards, uh, there's around I'll go with giving your side the most credence. 50,000 people that will die if you just let the course take it as it will.
Okay.
But if you pull the lever, it's going to go and kill between 300,000 to 3 million people. And you're saying to pull the lever and a big portion of this 300,000 to 3 million people is going to be killed to save this 50,000 number.
You'd have to repeat that. I don't quite get the comparison. I don't quite get what you're saying.
Yeah, so the average yearly amount of people that die due to guns is between 40 and 50,000, 50,000 on the high end.
Okay.
And half of that is self-unalivings, and probably half of that remaining number is going to be accidental discharges. So you're actually looking at about 10 to 12,000 people dead from actual gun violence. As to defensive use of firearms, according to the CDC, before they stopped reporting it because it didn't help their narrative, it was between 300,000 and on the upwards end of 3 million. We'll go with 300,000 to, be liberal with it and give your side the most credence on it. 300,000
Okay,
people
I get
saved
what
by
you're saying.
defensive use
Okay,
of
I
firearms.
get it now. Okay, I went to take notes on this so I could clear. Okay, what you're basically saying, with guns, we're losing 40 to 50 people per year, and you're suggesting that even though we're losing 40 to 50 people, 40 to 50,000 people per year, you're also having 300,000 to 3 million being saved by defensive gun use. So you're using my previous comparison and saying if you want to save lives, why wouldn't you choose to allow guns to remain in place because you're saving so many people? It's a good question, and I would respond by simply answering by saying this. The defensive gun use that we are championing, such as saving 300K to 3 million people, if you ban guns, that number would drop drastically because you don't need to use a gun in self-defense if the criminal don't have it anymore. So that 300K to 3 million number, if guns were outlawed or taken off the street, you're going to have a hell of a lot less of defensive gun use because the people that are committing crimes no longer have firearms, such as a country like England or Australia. How many defensive gun use scenarios you think they have, when most of the citizens at best can get their hands
Well,
on a knife? They're not pulling out guns on people like that.
well,
In America, you can get a gun pulled out on you during a traffic stop, even though you're unarmed.
yeah, with those two countries specifically, I don't respect them in regards to guns. One, the UK, or as it was known, England, took the knee to the crown and basically became subservient to the royal family. And with Australia, when it comes to guns, they fought a war with birds and lost. So I think that kind of discredits them in regards to that.
Even
Uh,
though we got a record ourselves of hundreds of years of slavery and female oppression, we're going to talk about what they did.
yeah, that's all wrong. I don't think.
Yeah,
I
I agree
I
with
don't think
that.
fixing. I don't think the
I
way to
totally agree
fix
with
a
that.
rights violation is by uh, committing a separate rights violation.
Well, I guess the point I'm trying to make is when you look at the history of a young country like America, or you look at the history of a much older country like England, or a very young country like Australia, it's hard to point to Americans and say, well, because they've had to access the firearms, their people have lived a much better life. I don't see the evidence of that. The other countries with no firearms, their citizens have actually been safer. You don't have kids going to school in England or going to school in Australia and coming back home with holes in them. So I don't see how the guns have benefited us in society.
Yeah, so one, it's prevented us from being invaded because most countries, they don't truly fear our military; they fear the people. And two, I actually don't value quality of life as a stance because at what point, what is the desired level of quality of life that is required for you to be able to commit rights violations? Um, it becomes a very arbitrary stance and argument to have when determining,
Well,
how good
yeah,
of a life to have
a
in
couple,
order for you to
yeah,
be
a
able to
couple,
commit these rights violations.
yeah, a couple responses that I will tell you. There's very little you can't do in Australia that you can do here. They got the Australian dream is definitely equivalent to the American dream, plus or minus a hell of a lot of crime and things like that. So, and there are other countries. So I definitely don't submit that we're, somehow the best country. So I don't know. I like I said, having lived in Australia for 5 years myself, I don't see where they're hurting that bad in regards to losing guns. And this is one of the things I got to move it on, but I'll give you the last word. I want to ask you this. the first world countries that lost firearms, like Norway, Australia, New Zealand recently, the UK has do not have fire. All of these countries are democratic republics. They can vote. They can vote legislation, vote rights back in. Any idea why there has not been a significant push for any of these countries that lost their firearms to get their firearms back? There's a few people in these countries that want guns back, but overwhelmingly, they are not looking like we want to go back to what we used to have and get our firearms back. If having firearms provides all the protections against tyranny and things you're mentioning, why don't these countries want their guns back?
I couldn't answer that. I'm not from that country because that's a question of preference and personal desire, obviously on a more mass scale. And I couldn't answer that because that is not my preference nor personal desire as to the reasoning why they do not have this preference or
Fair.
personal desire.
Okay, that's a fair point. And I just brought it up because you look at England, they had Brexit, they fought like hell to separate from the European Union. These countries do fight hard for things they want. And losing gun rights is something they're not looking like what you're talking about. Well, we lost our gun rights, it's going to be tyranny or I can't defend myself. They are looking and suggesting that based on what happens in America, and I'm going to tell you this because I've had Australians call in the program. I had a guy tell me, we have politicians occasionally that talk about bringing gun rights back, and we quickly get rid of them. He said because every time there's a mass casualty event in America, we see it on TV, and we're like, we don't want that back here. We don't want our kids going to school and getting shot. So anytime there's a politician campaigning on bringing guns back, he said we quickly vote them out of office because we don't want to be like America. What do you think of something like that?
That's fine if that's their personal preference and their preference and personal desire. It is what it is. It doesn't stop at the. It doesn't negate the fact that by the government taking this action against the people, it is tyranny. It just means the people are okay with this tyranny.
All right, fair enough. Appreciate you coming in, libertarian guy. You're always welcome back, man.
Yeah, last words. I just
Sure.
want to thank you for having me on. We disagree. I disagree with Republicans as well. I'm a little bit farther on that scale, but we're always
Okay.
able to have a good conversation.
Absolutely.
Everybody in the chat, we need to encourage this type of stuff. We disagreed on this fact, but if we were in person, we'd shake hands and we wouldn't hate each other.
100% agree. 100% agree. Come on back to any time. Appreciate you in here. All right. Looking in the drop down. Well, as always, folks, you know what this is. This is indeed a lunch break live. As always, what I do around this time, I actually went over a little bit, but I do appreciate you folks getting your boy up to 88,000 likes. Couldn't have done it without you. As always, I don't block, ban, or censor anyone for their commentary. The fact you disagree with the host never means a damn thing here. Program is and always shall remain MAGA friendly, but liberals are welcome as well. To be anywhere you want to be on this app, it's always an honor having you here with your boy. Appreciate those folks who subscribed. We're here Monday through Friday. If you enjoy civilized dialogue from both sides of the aisle without any fear of being blocked, banned, or censored, follow the program. Helps out the algorithms. You know how we get down. Rich one. Appreciate the TikTok cap. You folks have a good day. I'll see you tomorrow.